right, good morning and welcome back. If you haven't grabbed the paper, go ahead and do that. Today we are going to talk about expanding and condensing logs here, but first I want to kind of show why this matters. So if we think back to, if we were asked to solve for x here on this problem, this is an exponential problem. First thing we can do is kind of combine our terms, so e to the x plus 2 times e to the x. If they're multiplying, hopefully we know we add the exponents. So we would rewrite that as e to the 2x plus 2. And now at this point, what can we do? Hopefully you guys can see that the base is common. They're both e to something, so those we can kind of get rid of because we know the exponents have to be equal. So 2x plus 2 equals 6. Subtract 2, we'll have 2x equals 4, and then we'll divide and we'll get x equals 2. Okay, that's all we have to do. It's pretty simple. I think most of you could do that quite efficiently. Okay, now what if we have a situation here? They're all log base 2, but how can we kind of like manipulate this? Okay, so we are going to talk about this. We're not actually going to solve this problem. We're going to talk about it. There are 3 rules, much like when we talked about exponentials, we talked about kind of the product rule, quotient rule, power rule. It's the same 3 rules, okay, that we're going to talk about here. The product rule, if we have log base b of m times n, do you see how they're next to each other? They're multiplied. That can be rewritten as log base b of m plus log base b of n, okay, and vice versa. Now, this only works if they have the same base that you can combine them. But if they are being multiplied, we can split it up and add. Here, log base b of m divided by n, quotient we know is dividing. That can be rewritten here where we subtract. And then the power rule, if it's log base b of m to the p, that p gets multiplied out front, p times log base b of m. So these 3 rules, you probably learned them in Algebra 2 at some point, but these 3 rules will go into effect today. We're going to apply them. So this first section says, write each expression as a sum or difference of logarithms. So we're going to try to split it up as much as we can. Now the first thing to notice here, we have x to the third. So if we have an exponent here, when they are being multiplied, we can, well, let's start off actually just with our multiplication. Okay, so if we have these 2 multiplied together, we could rewrite that as log base b of x to the third plus log base b of y to the second. And I want to point something out. Anytime it's in the numerator, technically these are both over 1. They're going to be positive. So if I wanted to, I could put like a plus sign out there. I don't need to because it's positive. We can see that. Okay. Now we would not be done here because both of these are raised to the third. This one's raised to the second. We can now use our power rule to rewrite that as our final answer, 3 log base b of x plus 2 log base b of y. Okay. Now, on our second example, it'll be the same idea here, except before we begin, let's think about this right here. That can be rewritten as y to 3 halves, okay, or y raised to 3 over 2. It's the square root, which is the same as 1/2, and it's y to the third, okay? So now we could rewrite this. It'd be log base b of x plus log base b of y to the 3 halves. We're not done though because we have y to the 3 halves, so we need to rewrite that. Log base b of x plus 3 over 2 log base b of y. And we'd be done. Okay. Now on our next one, we're dealing with ln. That doesn't really change anything. We're still doing the same process, okay, but now it's with ln. So if I rewrote this, think about that. We have the top and the bottom. So we're going to have ln of x squared. Okay, this time it will be minus the ln of all of that, x minus 1 cubed. Now, some of us might be tempted to try to split that apart, but we can't split that apart. It's already got a subtraction. The only time we split things apart is when we are dividing or when we are adding. Okay, we can't split that apart if it's negative. We can't add another negative in here. Okay, that stays together. Now we're not done because we have our exponents here. Okay, so we're going to rewrite this then as 2 ln of x minus 3 ln of x minus 1. And all of that will stay in there, and this is as far as we can go. And finally, letter D. On letter D here, if we were breaking it apart, we know that log of x is positive because it's on top, minus log of y minus log of z to the third. Both of those are minus because they're both technically dividing. Uh-oh, this is kind of in my way. All right, so now we're almost done, except remember this is z to the third, so I would need to write it as log of x minus log of y minus 3 log of z. And if you feel like you can skip that intermittent step there, you do not have to do that. You can just jump right to the end. Okay. If you are confused on it, then I would say always break it apart and then deal with the powers next. Okay, now that was expanding. Sometimes we also go the opposite way. We condense. And we'll see why these are useful. Today it's just kind of about execution. As we go, we'll see why this is useful. So if we look here, basically a rule of thumb when we're condensing, anytime it's plus, it's going to be on the top in the numerator. Anytime it's minus, that means you're dividing by it, so it's going to be in the denominator. So if we look here, log, first off, we have to check, do they all have the same base? They're all don't have anything listed for the base, so we know it's base 10. Okay, so it's going to be log of the x will be on top times 9. Now we're minus all this will be on the bottom here. So we'll have x squared plus 1. And then if we think about it, it's also times that 5. Now that's not as simple as we can go. We can break that apart a little, or we can condense it a little further. So let's go ahead and rewrite that then as log of 45x all over x squared plus 1. And this would be our final answer. Now some of you might be thinking, well, if we were asked to expand that, what would we get? Would we get all the way to our original answer? The answer is no. If we were expanding this, there's no reason you would break apart the 5 and the 9. If we were asked to expand that, you would get log of 45 plus log of x plus log of all that x squared plus 1. Now keep in mind, some of you might be tempted now to say we got to rewrite that and put the, oops, I made a mistake. Hopefully you caught that. I need this to be minus, so sorry about that. But hopefully, if we look here, some of you might have thought, well, x squared, we can bring that 2 out front, but the whole thing isn't squared. So since the whole thing isn't squared, we can't bring it out front. If this whole thing was raised to like the third, then I could put it out front. Okay, so what I did in blue, that was extra. The red is actually the answer of what it asked. That was just showing you. But there'd be no reason to break 45 up to 5 and 9. That was just what the original had, and we saw that we could put them together. Okay. All right, let's keep going. So our next one here, it'd be log base 3. I'm going to go ahead and do all this kind of at once. So x squared, because we know that 2 goes up there, minus, so this will be on the bottom, y, and then this is 2/3. So a couple options. You can either think of it as z to the 2/3, and that actually is right, or we can put z squared inside of a cube root. That means the same thing. Okay, so I don't care which one you have. You can either have that, what I have right here, or if you prefer, you could do log base 3 of x squared over y times z to the 2/3. Either of those is correct. Okay, almost done. Here, example C, they are all ln, so we can go ahead and combine. ln 30 is positive, so that will be on top, divided by, now it's minus, so that goes to the bottom, and it's x to the second. Now here we have to be careful, plus. Some of you might be tempted to say, well, all that's on the bottom. No, the plus, this will go back on top, So it'd be y to the third. And our final one here, lots of letters here. Some of the delta math questions will be like this, so I wanted to show one. If we were doing this, first off, they're all log base 10. So it'd be b raised to the a times d raised to the c divided by g raised to the f. And all of that, that is how we would condense it down to just one log. Okay, so give this a try. If you can't get it all done, tomorrow there will be a chance to expand on this and to ask some questions. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.